Welcome everyone. So we would be starting with the first chapter from the very rigorous book. It's a very dense reading. It's Marketing Theory by Shelby Hunt. Almost a very certain part of all the doctoral programs of marketing, but don't be misled if you are from any other area or department, because this book is almost entirely about philosophy of science, right? Applied philosophy of science. And even if you are from other disciplines, this book will be of a lot of benefit to you. You will greatly benefit, right? It is hardly uh, 10%, or even let's say 5% of that is uh, specific to marketing, mainly the only at the examples level. Okay, maybe the first chapter is a bit geared towards marketing, but again in this chapter also the way we argue is not very specific to marketing. So all in all, this book, the name is a bit of a misnomer. This is a philosophy of science, applied philosophy of science textbook, right? To be more precise, it's philosophy of science applied to the social sciences, right? So without delaying, so let's start this one. So we will start with uh, this chapter. So if you read this chapter, it starts with a very provocative quote, rather, by Epictetus. Epictetus says that you prove to me I should study logic. Someone says this to Epictetus, right? Epictetus doesn't say this. Someone, you know, asks this to Epictetus. Epictetus, as we know, was a Stoic and a very famous one. Uh, then Epictetus says to that a very famous reply. He says, "How would you know that it was a good proof? How would you know that it was a good proof?" Right? So, to understand the proof, you need to apply some criteria, right? And this is where logic and philosophy of science steps in. Now, uh, you know, uh, then he poses some contradictions. Uh, so the first contradiction is that it is all about marketing research, but this book doesn't cover the usual marketing research topics. So because typical marketing research textbooks, they have things like experiments, or they have sampling, or data collection, or analysis, structural equation modeling and all that. This doesn't. So how does it claim that it's marketing research? Then the second contradiction might be that it's an advanced book, but it has no maths, right? So it doesn't have regression, structural equation modeling. Then third contradiction is that theory is impractical, and so still this book claims that it is very practical. Now Hunt tries to show that these contradictions only are very misnomers. These don't exist. So the first contradiction is that since it has no sampling design, he tries to ward off this misperception. That marketing, he argues that marketing research is fundamentally about explanation. It's about prediction and understanding of marketing phenomena. Market research solves a particular firm's problem. For instance, what is this store's image, or where should this warehouse go? But marketing research builds general knowledge about marketing. So there is a clear difference between market research and marketing research. Marketing research. So marketing research clearly is it is focused on general knowledge, not the specific firm level knowledge, right? So this is more scholarly marketing research. And what is the litmus test for ascertaining whether something is marketing research or not market research rather? So you only ask one question. What will we know about marketing in general that we don't didn't know before? So, right, this is one cornerstone you should just ask. Uh, Now, if you know something because of this paper that you didn't know earlier, that is a contribution to marketing, and that should be applied, of course, in general, not to just a particular firm, then it's marketing research. Second contradiction, which you talk, since it has no equation, it cannot claim to be advanced. So, see, advanced doesn't only mean mathematically complex. So, there are multiple toolkits for doing research. One of them is the quantitative methods. Philosophy of science is another toolkit, right? It is also conceptually difficult, it is jargon heavy, it is unfamiliar to most of the students at first. Uh, Marketing has a history of fads in which new toolkits are, just sold as magic bullets. For instance, SIM and all that conjoint analysis. So, philosophy of science is also a toolkit, but it is Hunt is not claiming it's very infallible toolkit. It's not panacea. Why students find this advanced is because of it has new vocabulary. So philosophy of science is rife, is full of new vocabulary. For example, retrodiction and deductive nomological explanation, inductive statistical explanation. These all are new vocabulary. And then uh, this approach also enforces a lot of rigor as to what the scientific method is. So people have a lot of mistaken beliefs about what the scientific method is, but we shall see, right? And what is the philosophy Hunt is very consistent about in his book? That philosophy is a combination of, so I'll write here, uh, it says about Hunt's philosophy. Hunt's philosophy is a mix of critical pluralism, and scientific realism. So, critical pluralism is to be open or tolerant about new methods and theories, and we should subject all the methods and theories to critical scrutiny. So, this is anti-dogmatism. That saying that my method is only the true method, or even anti-relativism, because anti-relativism, some people like to think of it as anything goes, so no critique is possible because everything is relative. And second one is the scientific realism. What is this? Scientific realism is that the world exists independently of perception. So Hunt adopts this approach. We need not adopt Berkeley's approach, or in the Indian philosophy. Huh. So this scientific realism, uh, that science aims for genuine knowledge but not certainty. This is fallibilism. So we need not be always very toxically uh, engrossed on certainty. Then the knowledge claims should be critically tested, which is the critical realism. So critical realism. And there is also a thing about inductive realism. What is this inductive realism? That this is very important. That the long-term success of a theory gives reason to believe that whatever it posits, the structure it posits, or the entities it posits, are something like real. Okay, so you can believe in criteria for judging knowledge without claiming certainty. And there is a difference between being absolutist, which is the normal absolutist, from being the capital, very toxic kind of uh, absolutist. And saying that, that since we cannot be uh, uh, very certain about anything, so let's abandon the pursuit of those things. We need not take that view, right? Because we are proponents of fallibilism in this text. Uh, the third contradiction is that the theory is impractical. Now, again, this is a false dichotomy because uh, uh, a theory is a systematic related set of statements, including the law-like generalization that is empirically testable. And what is the purpose of theory? The purpose of theory is to explain and predict the phenomena. So if something can't explain or predict, it's not theory. And explanation in or prediction in marketing are obviously very practical things. So good theory is practical work, right? We shall see in much detail later that a good explanation, in fact, explanation implies the ability to predict. Okay, so unless, so it has to be practical, right? Other false dichotomies also are prevalent. For example, behavioral versus quantitative, or rigor versus relevance. The claim like, something which is rigorous is not relevant. Or now some of the other questions uh, uh, this he addresses would be uh, we'll see this throughout the course of this book. What does it mean to scientifically explain the marketing phenomena? Can we explain without predicting? What are the difference between explanation and causation? Are there laws in marketing and are there law-like generalizations? And what is theory? And why must it include law-like generalization? Why must theory be testable? And then how should the marketing phenomena be classified? These broadly connect to the classic debate about, is marketing a science, right? Uh, and then uh, so there are some controversies, right, about uh, uh, marketing being a science or not. Let's say marketing science or not. So these, it might look that the debate has died down, but the substantive issues are alive. They keep on appearing in new debates like broadening the marketing domain, positivism versus relativism. People disagree on what marketing is and what science is. So we need a clear conceptual domain for marketing. So we see a section on the nature of marketing in which we ask some basic questions like what is marketing and what phenomena are called marketing phenomena, what is a marketing system. Now, to see this, the nature of marketing. So, in this, the nature of marketing. So, we have many definitions of marketing given by the American Marketing Association. Now, the old definition of marketing, the 1985, uh, the AMA definition framed marketing as business activities that direct the flow of goods and services from the producer to the consumer or user. This was targeted as too restrictive. So the 1985 definition was very restrictive. Uh, Now, in 1965, the Ohio state uh, uh, it positioned marketing as a societal process. So it shifts the center of gravity from not a set of business activities to a process in society, which is about anticipating, enlarging, satisfying demand through conception, promotion, exchange, and physical distribution. So, marketing is not merely what the firms do, it's a broader societal process. So, we have Ohio 1965, which is about marketing being a broader societal process. Then Kotler and Levy in 1969, they included the non-business organizations as well. So, they say that non-business, it's a very interesting paper actually. You can try and read that, expanding the scope of marketing. So in that, Kotler and Levy argue that the non-business organizations like the churches, police departments, and public schools, they also have products and customers. They also use the marketing mix tools. They do marketing or at least marketing-like activities. Their punchline is very strong, and no organization can avoid marketing. So the only choice is either you do marketing well or you do it poorly. So marketing is not there in only profit firms. So this is a major contribution of Kotler and Levy about expanding the scope of marketing. Then Laser in 1969. So Laser also pushed for a definition that recognizes marketing as more than just a technology of the firm, and which includes the societal dimensions. So we have two related broadening claims in here. One which includes the non-profits, and other which takes the societal effects very seriously. And then we have another person in the debate called Luck. So Luck clearly has no you no plans to just agree with all these people above. So Luck uh, uh, wishes ill luck on these people and says that marketing is tied to business processes that ultimately result in a market transaction. So business processes that result in market transactions. So to that, Kotler and Levy apply that the essence is not marketing transaction, but exchange more generally. And when we restrict, we uh, cannot apply marketing to the growing sectors. So this is the deeper dispute, that is marketing defined by the market transaction or only by the exchange of the values more broadly. Then in the early 70s, in 1970, by 1971, the Journal of Marketing devoted a full issue to marketing's changing social and environmental role. And Kotler and Zaltman, they coined the term social marketing. So there was a term social marketing, and they defined it as using uh, uh, the marketing tools to influence the acceptability of social ideas. And for instance, in product planning and pricing, communication, distribution, and research. So this shows that the broadening has become operational and marketing tools applied to health, fundraising, population, hitherto, which was ignored. Um, then Kotler sharpened the argument in 1972, saying that the essence is the transaction. The essence of marketing is the transaction, which is the exchange of values between the two parties. So this is the transaction. Uh, Marketing is concerned with how transactions are created, stimulated, facilitated, and valued. And then in the mid 1970s, and this broadening was largely accepted. For instance, Nichols in 1974 found overwhelming educator support for broadening to non-profits and beyond the good and services. So broadening won amongst the educators. Then there are three questions which matter. So the first question is, what do writers think is included in marketing, which is a very descriptive thing. And then we have a normative or definitional thing, that what should be included in marketing. And then we have how to that include, so that it includes what it should and excludes what it shouldn't. And so the scope of the marketing list, uh, it's very huge. Consumer behavior, pricing, purchasing, sales, product management, comparative marketing, marketing communication, social marketing, ethics, relationship marketing, societal issues, retail, wholesale, CSR, brand equity, commodity marketing, etc., etc. Some large number of topics which are classified in the marketing. And in this, not everyone agrees what to exclude, and this disagreement stems from fundamentally different perspectives. So we need some common ground to classify the topic systematically. So we have a very important contribution from this, you know, chapter, which is the three dichotomies model. So this is a crucial part, the three dichotomies model, which is it's a classification. Huh. So the three dichotomies, the first one is the profit versus non-profit. The second one is the micro versus macro. And the third one is positive versus normative. These are the three dichotomies model. And because each of them has two categories, so total you have 8 cells. So the when we go to the first one is it's the profit versus non-profit. So the profit sector is, as is clear by the name, it studies firms or entities with profit objectives or which adopt their perspective of the profit making firms. And the non-profit sector is which is about studying entities without the profit objectives or which which adopt the perspectives of the non-profit sector. So non-profits can also be inside the scope, right? And we can keep the distinction analytically. The second one is positive uh, versus normative. So, uh, so positive marketing describes or explains or predicts or understands what actually exists. So positive is about is, right? And normative is about what ought to be or what the actors or systems ought to do. So there is a distinction between the positive and normative. Normally, what we perceive, this is about ought, this is about is. So ought can be ethical, moral, or instrumental, rational. So some examples: do price promotions increase brand switching? This is a positive statement. Should firms use price promotions? Is a normative statement. Should advertising be regulated more strongly? Is a normative one. And the third one is micro versus macro. And this one is quite messy, right? Because micro is traditionally, as per economics, micro is the individual units, which is firms, consumers, households. Macro is the higher aggregations, marketing systems, a group of consumers. And problems arise uh, because let's take a question. Does marketing have special social responsibilities? I'm positing a question. They don't neatly fit into macro purely by aggregation, right? But marketers still want to classify them as macro. So some propose that whatever is in the firm's internal interests is micro, and whatever is in the society's interest or in which we deal with externalities, they are in macro. So as per this approach, social responsibilities, efficiency, productivity uh, can be included, but it fails to cover topics many also think should be included in macro. For example, legal aspects or comparative marketing or the channel relationships, and because those aren't always society's interests issue. So Hunt says that macro marketing is multidimensional and this can't be reduced to a single criterion like aggression or societal interest. And this is a very key methodological point, that our categories should match how the field actually carves the phenomenon, and uh, but also it should be logically coherent. We have a table there in the text, the cell one. So we have 8 cells, right? So if we see the first cell, which will be about uh, profit micro positive. So let's make a first cell. This is the profit. Out of profit non-profit we are choosing profit, out of micro macro we are choosing micro, and out of positive normative we are choosing positive. So this is a cell, right? Positive, micro positive. In this, we are concerned about describing or explaining what firms or consumers do. So we are more interested in the individual buyer behavior, or how firms set prices or products or promotions or channels. We have in it also the case studies of the actual practices. Then what next do we have? We have profit micro normative. So in profit micro normative, we are interested in what the profit oriented firm should do, how the firm should determine the marketing mix, pricing, products, promotion, packaging, how the strategy planning, organizing the marketing department should go, what should be the market orientation, brand equity management, or stakeholder relationship, etc. Then in the cell 3, we have profit macro and positive. Okay. Initially, we had seen profit micro positive. This is profit macro positive. This again describes or explains the keywords are describes or explains the system level and the institutional phenomena. For instance, aggregate consumption patterns, or the institutional or commodity or functional approaches, or the legal aspects, or the efficiency of marketing systems, the power conflicts, and so on. Whether marketing concepts aligns with the consumer interest in a sort of explanatory way, no morality is involved yet. And then we have macro, profit macro normative, macro normative. This is about ought. So it prescribes what the society or marketing system ought to look like. It explores questions like, should advertising exist, or should it, you know, should it be socially, is it socially desirable? Do distribution costs, does this distribution cost too much? Should consumer sovereignty be the goal, and what are the optimal marketing laws, and should marketing have special responsibilities, right? So you can already see why the debates get heated, right? So if a scholar is doing positive work, he's delving into what is happening, and another is doing a normative work about what should happen, and they talk past each other while thinking that they disagree on marketing, right? So disagreement is not a marketing disagreement, is because they are fundamentally doing different kinds of work, one positive and one normative. Then we have another cell, non-profit micro positive. So the profit era is over. Now we have non-profit micro positive, in which we describe or explain again what happens. So this is what is happening in the non-profit marketing at the level of organization and individual customers. So how people purchase the public goods, for instance, voting choices or adoption of public services, how the non-profits determine the price, product, promotion channels, or we also have case studies for public good marketing. Then we have non-profit micro-normative. So we have non-profit micro-normative. So this is about how to do it well applied to the non-profits. So it explores questions like how non-profits should determine the marketing mix, pertaining to social marketing, of course, how they should make pricing or product or promotion packaging decisions, and then how to organize, control a marketing strategy and all that. Then we have non-profit macro positive. So non-profit macro positive. So this is when we look at the non-profit or public goods marketing at a system level. For instance, we explore the institutional framework for public goods, and whether TV advertising influences elections, and whether the public services ads influence behavior, or we look at the efficiency of public goods distribution system, or we look at how the public goods are recycled. Then finally, we have the non-profit, macro, and normative. So this is the societal evaluation, prescriptive societal evaluation. Should it explores question like, should society allow politicians to be sold like toothpaste, or should demand for public goods be stimulated? And then, is the low information political advertising socially desirable? And should we hold the political advertising to the same standards as commercial advertising? Okay, so the all to conclude this section, they exist wherever there is an organized exchange, distribution, and demand shaping, and especially in the modern societies, right? Uh, so, and then again, we had an ambiguity about micro versus macro. So, this was an ambiguity, and Hunt will solve it. So, this micro versus macro. Uh, we have a three criterion definition of macro marketing. So, macro marketing studies the marketing systems. Then, in that, we have the impact of marketing systems on society, and we have the impact of society on marketing systems. So, marketing systems on society and society on marketing systems. This approach is important because it rescues macro marketing scale version of micro marketing. It also explicitly includes law, politics, culture, value, and institutions as things which shape marketing and is shaped by marketing. And this is also adopted by this view is also adopted by the Journal of Macro Marketing. So if you are interested in these things, this is the journal for to look out for, Journal of Macro Marketing. Then we have uh, various schools of marketing, right? Uh, so there is this book on marketing theory only by Shade, Atul Parvatiyar, and K. Nosley. In that, the schools are discussed in great length. But here we'll just see it from a somewhat more scientific perspective. Uh, in the we will map these schools of marketing into the cells, the eight cells we first uh, wrote. So uh, the early marketing criteria circa 1920 are mostly fitted into the cell 3. For example, the institutional commodity or functional approaches, they focused on the existing distribution systems and institutions, that is system level, uh, descriptive and business focus. So this is, can I write profit as simply pi? So pi, macro, positive. So the 1920s, the whatever philosophical stream of marketing in the 1920s fitted into this. But uh, it is not that these early works was purely positive. For instance, he gives an example of Weld, who in 1920 not only described the distribution, but he also raised some normative questions like too many middlemen. So it also uh, so it's not that the entire 1920s comes in the profit macro positive. For instance, this work by Weld, it spans profit macro positive and also profit macro normative. There was also a 20th century fund, 20th century fund study. Does distribution cost too much? In 1939, this was also profit macro normative, and some other works also blend the positive and normative macro perspectives. Then we had managerial approach in the early 1960s, which was mostly profit micro normative. Okay, so this is profit micro normative. This was about managerial approach in the 1960s. So earlier one was institutional. This one is managerial. So the managerial, according to this approach, this is the classical marketing management view, by the way. It just views the optimal marketing mix, or how should we segment, and what should be the customer relationship management, and which is explicitly prescriptive, and it's very manager focused. And this kind of approach also bloomed with McCarthy. And now another approach was the systems approach, right? The systems approach can come into many cells. So I'll write here systems approach. So systems isn't one cell. So it can be profit micro normative. For example, if we have optimization models like linear programming or dynamic programming, that is profit micro normative. We can have interactions among the institutions. That is the uh, profit macro positive. We can have efficiency or effectiveness evaluation, that is profit macro normative. And Hunt quotes Fisk's general systems approach description, which is goals, organization, inputs, outputs, constraints. Uh, uh, constraints like competition acts and all that, efficiency, effectiveness. Then also we had environmental approach, which was profit macro positive. So I'll write here environmental approach. Environmental approach was profit macro positive. So in that, uh, uh, this is profit macro positive. In this, focus was more on the environmental constraints like culture, competition, law, tech. And then in the 1970s, we had the trends of social marketing and societal issues. So basically everything social. And then in this, we have two trends. One is the non-profit macro positive, macro normative, and macro normative, right? So this one, the second one, macro normative, is about when you tackle with issues like ethics, ecology, consumerism, political ads, social responsibility, etc. Then uh, we have a section on the AMA definition 1985 and why it accompanies all the uh, the eight cells which we saw just now. So after decades of debate, the AMA adopted a new definition, which is planning, executing, conception, pricing, promotion, distribution of ideas, goods, services to create exchange. Hunt thinks it could still be improved. For example, he has problems with the phrase in organization and society, but it still is a big upgrade because the emphasis was on exchange and it also broadens marketing to include ideas. And then AMA also revisited the definition to 2004 and 2007, and which we'll see in the chapter 2. Then we have Vargo and Lush, the STL logic. So we have a note on the SDL logic also, which is a service dominant logic by Vargo and Lush. So Vargo and Lush identified the seven streams, which is market orientation, services marketing, relationship marketing, quality management, value supply chain, resource management, network analysis. So they argued that this all converges towards a services dominant logic. And then he states the very customer centric view of the service dominant logic, that the value is co-created with the customers, right? Uh, so operant resources, which are skills and knowledge, matter, and the consumer involvement in customization marketing as an organizational philosophy, right? So early, it's not that the customers are passive recipients of whatever the firms give them. Customers also co-create the value. I'm sorry. So customers also co-create the value, and it is the operant skills or knowledge which matters. Uh, so we had later ST, the 10 foundational principles or premises of the service dominant logic as well. To put it briefly, these were services is the basis of exchange and goods are merely service delivery. Customer always co-creates value. The firm can't deliver value, the firm can deliver only value propositions, and value is phenomenologically determined by the beneficiary. Now, STL guided projects can fit into any of the eight cells, depending on context. So, STL is an undergirding for varied research. Lush and Varro suggests it might be a foundation for a general theory of marketing. So STL is not presented as a new domain. Uh, it's rather a theoretical foundation that can underlie many kinds of marketing research. Now, uh, so people in the past, now we again come back to the single question which we were discussing, that the marketing is marketing a science debate becomes much clearer now because people argued past each other because they held different conceptions of marketing domain. Earlier, many practitioners, even now, uh, people think that uh, marketing is just the sell to, which is profit micro normative. This indubitably is the dominant view of, albeit wrong, but generally, if you ask people what they think of marketing, they tend to view it as a very thing which is related to the profit making enterprises at a firm level, right? And what should firms do to increase sales or not? So, this is the dominant view. And many academics want at least the cells 1 to 4, uh, positive, micro, macro, and normative, and after broadening can accept all the 8 cells. So initially, even if they don't accept the non-profits, but after broadening they will accept all the 8 cells. But at least people, the academicians are, there is a general consensus that we want at least the cells 1 to 4. Now, what are the consequences? Pretty bad consequences are there if we, uh, sorry for the normative judgment, by the way, but from a discipline point of view, if we just restrict marketing to this profit micro normative, then marketing is basically an applied prescriptive practices, what managers should do. Under that view, marketing is just like engineering or medicine, which is about applying sciences but not being a science itself. So Hutchinson in 1952 uh, exactly made that claim that marketing is an art or practice, and it's a travesty to compare scientific research for knowledge with seeking after customers. So Hutchinson was very, he gave a very scathing critique that marketing is not a science. So, and it's a travesty to compare uh, marketing with sciences. Now Hunt goes after uh, Hutchinson, says that Hunt, no. Hunt says, Hutchinson, you're wrong. Why? Because Hutchinson confuses market research or seeking customers with marketing research, right? And Hunt also argues that if the whole domain of marketing is profit micronormative, then my marketing can't be a science. But if marketing includes micro positive and macro positive phenomena, then there is no way marketing can't be scientific. So, this debate is not only about can you do experiments and It's also a definitional fight about what marketing actually is. Uh, then uh, we have uh, we'll see in the next you know part uh, the reason for these uh, definitional debates, why they keep happening, and why narrowing is dangerous. Let's do it now itself. Yes. So Karl Popper had made a point that definition of disciplines are largely agreements about what to focus on. And if we narrow the domain, it can prevent substantive contributions. So he introduces the term by Kaplan called premature closure. So what is this premature closure? Premature closure is that if you define a field too narrowly, then basically all the inquiries are shut down, shut down too early. They are stifled. This can be applied to marketing if marketing is just restricted to the micro normative cell. The marketing can be prematurely closed. Then, uh, and this is harmful because uh, uh, positive research, which is what describing, classifying, explaining, or predicting, may end up helping micronormative marketing more in the long run than narrowly managerial prescription work. So you're not you're not even including the positive. Only including the normative. You're only saying that sell to profit macro. Sorry, profit micro normative is marketing. So you are stifling the other cells, and actually the many of the findings from profit uh, micro positive can be very useful for the normative works as well. So if you want better prescriptions for managers, you need better positive knowledge about how the marketing phenomenon actually works. So their tolerance of ambiguity is very important for the scientific discovery, and we shouldn't close the domain because it feels very messy. The second source of confusion is about, you know, because people disagree on the scope of marketing, uh, uh, and this we saw earlier, people also disagree on the nature of science. There is also a disagreement on nature of science. So nature of science. So what is science? Uh, so there is a Buzzell's criteria for science, and Hunt criticizes that. So uh, there is a relativist view, right? That science is whatever society chooses to call science. This we will, the criticism of this we'll see later. So this is sort of like anything goes explanation. So most marketing scholars are non-relativists, luckily, and uh, and cite Buzzell's criteria. So Robert Buzzell, 1963, he gave a criteria for science. So I'll write here. This is Buzzell. So Buzzell says that a science is classified and systematized body of knowledge. So classified and systematized body of knowledge. Science is a body of knowledge, classified, systematized. And it is organized around one or more central theories and generating general principles. So there are central theories and there are general principles. And it is usually explained quantitatively, quantitatively, and it also permits prediction and sometimes control. So prediction and sometimes control of future events. So Buzzell concluded that marketing lacked enough theory or principles to be a science. And Hunt's critique of Buzzell is about the central theories requirement. Uh, he argues that if you say that you are not a science until you have central theories, this is confusing the goal or outcome of scientific effort with the nature of science itself. Uh, uh, was chemistry not a science before the periodic table? This is quite absurd, right? So Hunt concedes, he agrees that there is an honorific social dimension, that fields are often called sciences only after they mature and earn recognition. But that is about sociology of status, that is not at all pertaining to the conceptual meaning of science. Marketing shouldn't have to wait for the knighting. And uh, Hunt uses chemistry as an analogy and extracts three core characteristics. So we have now Hunt critiquing Buzzell, saying that we shouldn't have to wait for theories as such. So chemistry is used as an analogy, and now Hunt says that there are three core characteristics and fourth one about method as well. Let's see the characteristics. First characteristic is science should have a distinct subject matter. There should be a distinct subject matter of science. For instance, chemistry, a distinct subject matter is substances and their reactions. What is it for marketing then? So, marketing transaction. So, transaction is marketing, marketing subject matter. Even if economics, psychology, or sociology focus on, no, even if economics, psychology, or sociology study transactions, marketing can still be distinct because in marketing, the transaction is the focal point, but in economics, the focal point is the allocation of scarce resources. So, marketing can qualify as a distinct science if the transactions are genuinely its core. And the second one is about description and classification of subject matter. So, there should be a description and classification of the subject matter. So, every science tries to describe or classify the structure and properties of its subject matter. Uh, then the third is a presupposition of the underlying uniformities or regularities or causal structure. So, right here, presupposition of underlying uniformities, regularities, or causal structures. So every science assumes that there are discoverable regularities that yield empirical regular regularities, that yield some law-like generalizations or laws, principles, and theories. And then Hunt reframes the marketing question in a very Popper or Hempelish way. The key is not the question that does marketing already have central theories, but the key is, are there underlying uniformities, regularities, and causal structures in marketing phenomena, right? So according to this, are there any grounds? Okay, so the answer to these questions by Hunt is yes, right? So a priori marketing is about human. So and other behavioral sciences have found regularities, and there is no reason marketing should be uniquely regularity free. So there is an a priori reason, and there is also an empirical aspect that marketing research has exploded in the last decades, especially the consumer behavior and so some progress and some uniformities obviously exist. The fourth is, this is more to do with method, is the a distinctive method of analysis, which is the scientific method. So sciences are also distinguished by using the scientific method, and calls Hunt calls its historical importance enormous. Is the scientific method applicable to marketing? Hunt positions this as um, uh, articulating how the scientific method applies to marketing. And people unfortunately have some distorted views about laws and theories, but marketing researchers are at least as proficient, technically proficient in this, so they can apply the scientific uh, method as well. So, according to Hunt, the marketing satisfies these properties, right, a priori. So, because uh, the a priori logic that marketing will also find regularities, right? There's no way that marketing doesn't have any regularity, and that marketing research has exploded in the last decade. So uniformities exist, right? Regularities, uniformities, both are there. So marketing researchers are as technically proficient as the researchers in other disciplines. And then we have a very, very big controversy on which different perspectives do exist. And that is which is called the unity of scientific method controversy. So unity of scientific method. What is this? So, do the social sciences need a different scientific method than the physical sciences? Right? And Hunt frames it as there is a thesis, there are two theses. First is the multi scientific method. So, MSM thesis, right? Multi scientific method. This thesis argues that different sciences require different scientific methods, right? So different sciences, different methods. And there is also a SSM thesis, which is the single scientific method. It says that there is one scientific method only. So one scientific method. And this understanding this dispute is a precondition, right? So we will solve this before getting into the core question of science. And the key conceptual distinction is the techniques versus methodology. So different fields obviously use different techniques. Okay. Uh, so uh, because marketing techniques like consumer panels or questionnaires or Likert scales or regression or multidimensional scaling, surveys, sampling. These are techniques used in marketing. Chemistry uses techniques like test tubes, spectrometers, or cyclotrons. Some techniques like lab experiment are uh, more common in the physical sciences, but does it mean the scientific method differs? No, right? Uh, so the differ, right? Or MSM also becomes untenable if they claim that the very standards of the justification differs. So what is methodology? The methodology of science. So it is he's criticizing the MSM, right? That MSM basically argues the wrong thing. It is not that the different sciences obviously they will use different techniques, right? Of that is true, but is are they using different methodology? To which Hunt very clearly explains the methodology of science is the logic of justification. Is the logic of justification. What is this logic of justification? It is the rules or procedures by which a science accepts or rejects hypothesis, laws, or theories. So these are the rules or procedures by which a science accepts, rejects uh, hypothesis, laws, and theories. That's the deep method, right? Whether you use lab experiments or surveys, these are just techniques. Obviously, those will be different. And the radical MSM claim that that has been discredited, and Hunt quotes Hempel that all empirical sciences test statements basically the same way, that they derive implications that can be checked intersubjectively and then test them observationally or experimentally. Now, a another objection is addressed, which is often leveled on the social science, that uh, we need empathy or Verstehen, okay, which was a concept introduced by Max Weber. Verstehen. Hempel's basically that people have meanings to accord meanings to different acts, and so Hempel's response to that is empathy might may help you guess the hypothesis in the context of discovery, but whether the hypothesis is true depends on the objective evidence, right? So uh, uh, we'll see, by the way, variation on context of discovery versus justification and validation. So empathy is relevant to the logic of discovery, the context of discovery, but it is very irrelevant to justification. So there are two things now which we'll see uh, uh, later, which is about uh, the context of discovery and the context of justification or validation. Now, Uh, the scientific method is best explained as a commitment to evidence. So, this is a very uh, key idea here, that scientific method is commitment to evidence, right? And what is this commitment to evidence? Which is the concern for explanatory adequacy, testing, and inductive support. And saying that the scientific method is about evidence doesn't mean that only science uses evidence. So, scientific method can be used beyond the proper sciences, but scientific method still remains a scientific uh, method, right? And uh, so the unity of science comes from the shared standards of justification across sciences. So in all the sciences you have the same standard of justification. You have to follow this scientific method, the commitment to evidence, the concern for explanatory adequacy, uh, explanatory adequacy, testing, and inductive support, right? uh, So, so to summarize, they have two confusions. They confuse the techniques with methodology. Techniques are surveys, experiments, ethnography, etc. Methodology is the logic of why the evidence supports a claim. And they also confuse the context of discovery with the context of justification. And the context of discovery is how did you get the idea, right? How do we come up with hypothesis, tools, and theories? So that is the context of uh, where had I written this, context of discovery and context of justification. Didn't write, no problem. So context of discovery is, how did you get the idea? How did we come up with the hypothesis, laws, or theories? So context of discovery, are there tools or procedures that help generate them, or is there a logic of discovery that guarantees success, right? And so discovery is about origin and creative generation, and context of justification is why someone should believe the idea. That includes questions like what counts as scientific explanation and can we explain without predicting? Must theories be testable? Are the axioms assumed true? Etc. So justification is about evaluating, testing, confirmation, corroboration. So this is context of justification. So discovery is about where ideas come from. Justification is about whether they are warranted. So if we simply judge a claim based on origin rather than evidence, we commit the genetic fallacy, right? Because uh, uh, if this really was a thing that the Nazis condemned relativity because Einstein was a Jew. That is obviously irrelevant to whether the relativity is true or not. So origin uh, facts, that is who said it, how it was discovered, and what motivated it, are not the same as the warrant facts, which are the evidence implications or test. And this is where empathy or Verstehen gets uh, located. Empathy might help us generate a hypothesis, but empathy is not what makes it true, uh, right? Um, then, uh, so in the discovery versus justification, um, he has a nice table. So the he gives a flow chart with the top half, which is about the discovery routes. The bottom half is about what the scientists do with the products of discovery. So the five routes to discover ideas. So how do you discover? There is a difference between the context of discovery and justification. How do we discover the ideas? Now, discovery can happen in many weird ways, right? You can have dreams, like Ramanujan had. No, no, sorry, Kekule had, right? You can have some eureka moments, Archimedes. You can have some metaphor recognition, metaphor recognition. Then you can simply, go with the observation route. You can see observations, you can record data, classify, and then induce generalization. Then you can simply speculate, then assumptions and hypothetical model. Then from that you deduce the generalizations. So it is not that the dreams are scientific. The point is science does not require a pure origin, right? Let's not confuse the logic of discovery with the logic of justification. Science does not require a pure origin. Discovery is often messy, creative, and serendipitous, right? And but what happens after the discovery, which then it falls in the justification arena. That is, once we have the empirical generalizations, laws, and theories, after that comes the explanation, prediction, understanding, control, and empirical testing or formalization or the research hypothesis. Right? And this is uh, so this contrasts this with the logic of justification. So after we have some empirical generalizations or laws or theories, then we have explanations, predictions, understanding, control, and critically empirical testing, formalization, and research hypothesis. Uh, Kekule's benzene ring was an insight from a dozing dream of a snake biting its tail, and we know that Ramanujan received formulas from Namakkal, the goddess Namakkal. Archimedes had a eureka moment in the bath water, and then Newton's apple is also a fable, which is we know it's probably not true. Uh, so. Uh, these discoveries are flashes of perceptual insight. These are not the result of following some rigorously prescribed procedure. So, if someone says that marketing is not scientific just because it uses interpretation or empathy, this is wrong, right? Again, uh, we are confusing the logic of discovery with the logic of justification. This creative, serendipitous, and all that. Uh, so even physics discoveries can arise from dreams, and the sources of the discovery doesn't define the scientific status. The discovery justification does. Uh, so so metaphor is defined as a literally false statement of existential evaluation that if we say X is Y, that can be connotatively fruitful, right? For example, we often say strategic alliances are marriages, and through this we borrow extensively. This we borrow ontologically, we borrow spouses and family. Conceptually, we borrow concepts like partners and divorce. We also borrow values like commitment and trust. Let's take another example. Marketing is war. So marketing is war also invites some military ontology concepts or values. So metaphors can seed theorizing by transferring the structures across domains. So this fits into the logic of discovery, right? But those structures must face justification of testability, evidence, or explanatory adequacy. Uh, then uh, uh, Hunt also goes into the uh, inductivist versus the uh, deductivist roots. Uh, so economics often uses the deductivist route, right, which is uh, deductivist versus the inductivist route. So economics uses the deductivist route. This is about first you speculate, speculation. On the basis of this, you have some assumptions. Then you build the model, and from the model you deduce. So deduction. Economics uses this aplenty. But the marketing theorists historically praised inductivism. This route is we observe, we record facts, we classify, and then we induce. And these are the deductivist and inductivist routes. Uh, Now, strict inductivism again, Hunt is not a very big fan of, right? Uh, because uh, let's take an example of brand loyalty. Uh, if you simply start to observe everything relevant to brand loyalty, right? Let's say you adopt a very inductivist route. You want to understand brand loyalty. That a theorist who is an inductivist philosophically, he'll say that, okay, I'll adopt inductivist. I will observe everything which is relevant to brand loyalty. Now, this collapses, right? Because we cannot observe everything. We cannot observe the infinite phenomenon. And without prior hypothesis, how will you even decide what is relevant to brand loyalty? So data are never a priori irrelevant to a problem like to a problem like brand loyalty. They are only relevant or irrelevant to hypothesis about brand loyalty. And because classification is also infinite in possible ways, so this implies we need some guiding hypothesis. So speculation and a priori hypothesis are essential. So we do need some speculation an a priori hypothesis, even in this very inductivist approach. Otherwise, as we said, if you want to explain brand loyalty, how would you even know that these factors we should remove from our explanation? These factors we should keep because it is uh, uh, relevant. Uh, so we need this, and so strict. This implies strict uh, inductivism is untenable. Strict inductivism is untenable. So empathy can also, earlier we had seen Verstehen. So Verstehen can generate hypotheses about motives or meanings, but we also require uh, uh, evidence testing and evaluation. And we also saw this that strict induction is untenable because you know uh, this we need some speculation or a priori hypothesis. We'll continue this chapter next, in which we'll again look at, we'll just give a conclusion to this marketing science, and then we'll also evaluate the three dichotomies model, and we'll uh, go into some more philosophy of science aspects, Hume's is ought trap, for instance. So we'll look at it uh, with with the rigor which is there in the book. Right? Thank you.